Oh, we're doing 4K, nice.
And then if you don't mind, at some point getting some iPhone shots from the sides,
Sure.
where we can do some promotional stuff.
Yeah.
Just to people. You guys are in on the secret. We're trying to get something started, so these sorts of pilots, you know, the room's not as packed as we would hope it would be, but like moving forward, if enterprise likes what they see and feels like there's an investment here, we're hoping that they're going to continue these. Them or another company.
Then we have to work on our opening acts. You know what I mean?
We'll have an opener. We'll have a comedian come open.
Hopefully more than 12 people.
What's that? Well, yeah, the last time we had 25, which was good.
Yeah, that was
and
great.
I think that, you know, depending on how I market it in the future to professors, professors can give extra credit. And then I think, so if anyone's in Alex King's class that just arrived, there's a sign-in sheet for Alex's people.
What does he teach?
He's an accounting professor. A very amusing one. You like him? I like how he, I got to sit in on one of his classes recently, and he said, what can this be written off as? Can it be written off as this or this? You two, fight. And like his two students just were supposed to stand up on command and just duke it out over how the accounting was supposed to be done. I was like, this is intense, but I like it. He's sort of a gym rat, so I think he just brought that to the class.
Is that Alex King?
Alexander King, yeah.
Yeah, I'm an alumni. I wish I took him before.
Yeah, well, he's great. He's currently the faculty senate president. So
Well,
he used to have like long surfer hair, and then the day he got the presidency, he cut his hair. And like, I think he's just did it to be more professional, but I miss his hair.
But also, of course, as an alum, you can audit courses for the remainder of your life for very, very small price.
That's very true.
You can.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I mean, like, I graduated from the nursing school.
Yeah. No, I mean, across the university, it's one of the perks of alumnus. Yeah. I think that it's like $50 for a course or something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
Yeah, it's a very reasonable price, and in fact, I often have students that come back and take painting for them. I've got a woman in Rio who's taken painting like every semester for the last 10 years.
She's taken painting 100 times.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's great.
and it's like
It's Rolo's
ultimately,
cousin.
yeah, it's ultimately it's a lifelong learning. It hits our lifelong learning goal as a university to prepare students to learn for life. And so that you never, I mean, I've never stopped learning. Every time a new piece of technology comes out, I'm like, okay, guess I gotta.
I teach at COD, and our auditing was like almost the same amount to take the class.
Yeah, no, it's a great
That's
fringe.
fantastic.
It's a great fringe benefit. Check into it at the registrar's office.
So like, you asked them there, like, can I?
Assuming that there's still space in the class isn't full. So lots of times you can get on to audit, but if it's like say in a computer lab where there's only 20 seats, maybe you get bumped, but if there's a seat, then you get it.
Nice, because I remember when I was applying for the master's here, they actually got rid of the alumni discount at the time. And I was so disappointed. I was like, oh, bummer, never mind then.
Yeah. Well, check into auditing. You don't get graded for the class, but you do get the experience and the knowledge.
I get what you're saying. Like, you can just
Then you don't have to take the midterm and final.
Yeah.
I was an art major, and in my focus, I took plenty of classes. I never took pottery, right? I never took ceramics. But I always told myself after I graduated, I'd come back. And I still plan, at some point just taking that class for the fun.
think about it.
Might be slightly better than
I remember at Marine, I had an art teacher who did a silk screening, and he like,
That's my thing.
dude, I wanted to learn that just for myself,
We've got
with my own logos.
We've got a class here.
But if you're fixing your mind,
Maybe now, you guys are convincing me.
They have.
Yeah, no, I know that was my senior thesis.
They have
was,
this
screen
app
printed
where you
posters.
can call the app and they can tell you
A
how
friend
to
of mine,
fix
Martin Atkins,
anything.
he's big on silk screening,
I
and
mean,
he silk screens
I
on
got the
suits,
name of it,
like his suits and
but,
stuff, like big
There's a
flies
mix
and
of
crazy.
actually.
I made one for my brother, ironically, because he started on my personal training business, and then he didn't like my design. and was
Computer
like,
issues.
I was like, cool, bro.
it's awesome.
Well, you could change things. Well, I mean, I think I'll get us started, and then this is good. I like this lively kind of input where this is largely going to be a conversation between the four of us, but then about halfway through, we start asking questions of the audience. And so be thinking of questions that you would have. I have tons of students that let me know, and Pete, are we recording yet?
Mhm.
This is good. This is good content. I have plenty of students that let me know that they would love us to have professional resources like career coaches, like career counselors, things like that from the outside. That's exactly what this is. So thanks to Enterprise and the foundation grant that they provided us with, we were able to bring in some outside career professionals, pick their brain, and also get a faculty standpoint, and then I sort of bring a moderation or a balance to things, and so help keep things on track. These podcast series could apply specifically just to career, or it could be a career in nursing, career in finance, career in biology. We could flex these to however we want to do them. And thanks to WXAV and their partnership, we're hosting the videos there, and then we'll be able to benefit folks who maybe weren't able to come in the room, be here in the room. So we're able to meet them. So glad to explain the gist of it. So I'd like to begin by introducing our panel. Mark Dyson.
That's right.
Yeah, Mark Anthony Dyson. I'm happy to introduce. About 5 years ago, Mark and I met at a career event that he was hosting at a local community center, working with people who were disenfranchised from the job market. He provided a photographer who was taking free headshots, and Mark was meeting personally with community members, providing guidance on their career journey. Since then, I followed his compassionate career podcast, The Voice of Job Seekers, on LinkedIn, and we've enjoyed several valuable conversations about career, job seeking, and networking. My intern would tell me to sit up. Mark is a prolific writer, thinker, and speaker. He's been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Inc., Fast Company, and SiriusXM. He writes for Lensa.com, and in the past, The Financial Diet, PayScale, JobHunt.org, as well as many other career sites. Please join me in welcoming Mark. Lauren Milligan is a career coach and resume writer, business owner, and instructor at College of DuPage. She's a welder by hobby, and someone who finds it a bit awkward to wait patiently while someone else reads their bio. Her clients come for her for resume development, LinkedIn profile creation, networking, and interview skills coaching, crafting a multi-tiered job search campaign, and corporate outplacement. Lauren has worked with thousands of professionals in all stages of career advancement. She leads a multitude of career-related workshops and presentations throughout the Chicagoland area. She belongs to a variety of business groups, enabling her to stay current on what employers are looking for in their candidates. Simply put, when it comes to getting your next job, Lauren knows what you need to do to get there. Please join me in welcoming Lauren. Nathan, or Nate, or Rook Peck, is a digital art professor at St. Xavier University and maintains a relentless exhibition schedule in a wide range of art media. After graduating from the intermediate program at the University of Iowa, he has since employed the philosophy of cross-media hybridization. Can you say it?
Hybridization.
Hybridization. I don't think that's a word. Especially in terms, it's a hybridization of a word. Especially in terms of site-specific and process-based approaches to art making. Peck has been an active member of many collaborative and performance art groups in Chicago and is the co-founder of the Chicago Art Department. His recent works, Dream Machines at Elastic Arts, and Making Our History, Artists Render Lincoln's Legacies, commissioned by the University of Illinois Springfield, are just a few examples of Nathan's creative mind. Nate's flexibility has benefited SXU in countless ways, and in the last few years he's chaired the art and psychology departments, and now serves as interim director of Gen Ed. We are proud to have Nathan with us today and ask that you give him a warm welcome. Myself. I began my college career at Judson College, which is now a university, where I did not succeed as a student. After 3 semesters, I jumped into the workforce as a graphic designer for the Southside newspaper, The Daily Southtown. That led to a 20-plus year career in full-time or freelance graphic design, which I continue to this day. That said, my career has been a winding path, with experience in hospitality, sales, technology, and nonprofit leadership. I have a degree in hospitality management from Hilton, and I served as sales manager in Apple's business division. In 2016, I returned to university studying art and design here at St. Xavier University, where this time I carried a 3.9 GPA and graduated with my bachelor's in 2019 with honors. My senior thesis, a 6-part screen-printed poster series protesting the Muslim ban and Islamophobia in the U.S., was awarded Outstanding Honors Project of the Year for 2019. Following graduation, I joined SXU as a staff member, managing a staff of 50 of the most amazing students that SXU has at the Hub, SXU's frontline IT department. And in November, I transitioned to my current role as Associate Director of Employer Engagement and Internships in the Career Development Center. I also serve as Staff Council President, working with an amazing team of staff members that represent SXU's shared governance, along with the President's Office and the Faculty Senate. So now that that's done, let's get started. So the value of a college education is vigorously debated online, in social media, and in the halls of commerce. Many proponents of higher education have responded that the value of a university education comes in career preparation. What other benefits does a college degree provide? And do those benefits need to strictly fit into the career development framework? That's essentially where I want to start us off today. And so last time we started with Mark, I think Nate, as our special faculty guest, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the other benefits of a college degree as alongside.
Well, I think it ultimately breaks down to this sort of question, are you living to work or are you working to live? I mean, really, you want to be able to prepare as part of every part of your life for the future in some way, and I think that that's sort of thinking about like how you want to live and how you want to work, etc. But I think that the biggest thing, though, is that I'm definitely not on the earth to just do a job. You know what I mean? Like, I need to also have a lot of other joy in my life, a lot of other satisfaction in my life. And a lot of the things that bring me immense joy and satisfaction are the things that I did as electives, things that I took as classes that were not in my major, things I took in gen ed. I got involved in theater, got involved in journalism, got involved in a lot of things connected to music that really were not connected to my major, but are really how I unwind, how I enjoy myself in the world, which are very separate from what I do for a job. So that's number one. And second of all, I think that there's something that comes with an enormous amount of, it's about building confidence in what it is that you find to be interesting and exciting. There's something about like sort of walking around in the halls at a university that's different than anywhere else in the world, where you stumble on a conversation between a philosopher and a poet and a scientist in the cafeteria, and engage in that conversation, and ideas can flow in a totally different way than they will in a discipline-specific job situation. And I think that there's something about that that just brings me an incredible amount of joy. As you're talking about cross-media and cross-discipline hybridization, like my work is really at the intersection of things and not in a specific category. And so there's something about like sort of developing the confidence to sort of pursue those things that really give you love, give you joy, give you passion, and pursuing those things knowing full well that they might not be a job, but that they might be something that could inform what you do professionally, that might be able to inform what you do personally, and to be a way to meet people that you wouldn't know otherwise. And above all, is just an opportunity to sort of like, I guess, just kind of look at a different type of future, and a job is one part of it, but I'll say this, the job that I got like the first 4 jobs I got out of college didn't exist when I started college. Like they were just not even jobs, like, you know what I mean? Like I worked as a web designer, the web didn't exist when I was a freshman in college. I then got a job teaching web design, teaching digital design, got a job working in a digital sound studio. Like none of those things were even possible when I started as a freshman. There were interests that I pursued because I just genuinely loved that stuff. You know, as I was saying, like anytime a new piece of gear comes along, I have to go right back into my learning space because that's where I can figure out what I'm going to do next. And so now I teach a class in VR, and that didn't exist, 2 years before I was teaching it. But it's like the idea that things should continue to evolve, and giving yourself a certain amount of trust, or trusting yourself enough that these things that you find to be interesting are valuable to consume. Maybe you just want to become a better violin player, a better painter, and you figure out what to do with a career when it's time to figure out a career.
I like that. And I think that, you know, when a lot of students come to events like this, the concept that they come in with is, I'm going to find that vehicle that's going to take me to the next place. I'm going to find the the major that's going to lead to the career that's going to lead to this, when in reality it's the driver that really matters, and the career fits in and around that. And so we want to help people find careers that fit them, careers that benefit them. Obviously the university environment has been a good fit for you. I think you do well in for-profit. I think you do well in nonprofit. So I think that those skills can be applied in different ways. Someone who goes to school for teaching might find themselves in a marketing sphere or in a management sphere in another way. Lauren, like as you think about a young student or a young person who's coming to you and saying, not even a young person, but a person's coming to you and they're saying, I feel like I'm at a switching point in my career. I feel like I'm in a place where I need to change things up. I'm thinking about going back to school. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we do some exploration on that. Is there, as long as there's a benefit, that's great. So what I try to do first is, what is it that you're currently doing? What is it that you want to do? Is school the bridge between those two? If it is, great. Sometimes it's a certification program. But I will also say I never discourage anyone from going back to school. It's just, is there a way that you could work into that while you're getting that certification program or the degree or whatever? So my approach is less from the education aspect and more of the job and the career aspect. And so I always look at this as far as, okay, so at what point are you going to make that split? Are you going to quit your job now, go full-time? Are you going to hang on to this job? Why are you looking to get out of this job in the first place? Actually, that's one of the first things that I try to help determine, because a lot of people are just, I'm burned out, I'm fed up, I need to, I need to stop, I need something different. It's like, well, let's slow down a minute, let's figure out what that actually means and why that's happening. Then I look back at and see if there are patterns from before this. Are you continually feeling burned out in the same type of position you have? Then there are some changes. Are there changes that we can make from within the job that you have to make you happier at that job? So there's a lot of different exploration. My standpoint is usually more from the career aspect than from the education aspect.
Perfect. But I think we can take that back in time. And I encounter a lot of students who are in their senior year, that are in their junior year here, who are saying, I don't know that this is the major for me. I don't know that this is the right place for me. And so that's why we encourage internships. That's why we encourage that type of exploration that goes around certifications and things. I actually had a student come to me not too long ago that's in the final semester here, and they're like, I don't think I want to do accounting. I think I want to do this. And I said, well, this is finish. Finish. You're so close. Let's finish. Then let's look at possible certifications before you decide to jump into another field. Or let's meet with a couple accounting professors and some accounting professionals and talk about what it is that you're really looking to get out of this and where you could go.
Okay, on exactly what you said, what did we talk about last? There's a little quiz I'm going to give you. Because last week Mark and I especially talked about something that is very similar to what you're talking about now, talking to professionals. Do you remember what we called it?
Informational interview.
Very good. He
I
got
was
it.
listening to my own conversation.
That was so good. That was so good. So that's absolutely one of the things that, Mark and I as career professionals, that's one of our tools. It's called Informational Interviews, and exactly what James is talking about is going and talking to people who work in the field, asking them questions about what the industry is like, what their workday is like, what makes someone succeed in this industry versus someone else, what makes someone not succeed in this industry, what character traits or choices, different things like different strengths, etc. And so that's absolutely one of the things that's another thing. When I have someone who's talking about career transition in any form, at any point, I say, let's go talk to people who do what you're thinking of leaving as well as what you're looking to get into, and maybe we're going to come up with some insights from there. So the information, I'm so glad that you remembered that term. I'm so impressed.
Maybe, Mark, do you want to take us a little deeper dive into informational interviews?
Well, I could take us deeper, but one of the things I think we need to do is remove the barriers to learning and understand that there are no real barriers. A lot of times you can get to know a career and get to understand it more deeply is to ask somebody who's already doing it. And that is really, it should be the basic 101 to your education. You shouldn't go, I don't think a year without having shadowed somebody in an ideal career. Just so if you could follow them around for 1 hour or for an afternoon, that's going to be very informative. Especially if you can catch them in moments where they're really working in their career and maybe dealing with some of the challenges that you might be either interested in, embracing the challenge, or you may say, never mind, bruh. That's all right. I'm
That
good.
message for someone else.
I'll take the painting class next time. But ultimately, I think what people do is they set in this barrier that I have to learn all these things and then do it. You don't have to wait. In fact, my son is a really good example. I didn't teach him this, but he started getting internships and jobs his very first semester of school. He started connecting the dots with people and things to start to go through all these things. Now, it ended up being an English major, but because of all the hybridization, you like that hybridization? Of learning that he was able to take, he was able to put into writing, even though his master, he had 2 masters, I won't go into what they are. One of them is nursing.
Oh, wow.
But all that to say is that he took down all the barriers to what learning actually is, where learning actually happens, because it can now happen from anywhere. So once you start to remove the logistics and start to insert the mindset, it's going to make a big difference on what your possibilities are to be. And a lot of what's going to be created is going to be created outside the classroom, more so than inside the classroom. So, you know, start to remove those things and start to remove those obstacles, because really the only obstacle is you thinking that there are obstacles, and there really are.
If I can just jump off that for a second, I think that there's this thing, a couple of years into teaching, I'd only been teaching for about 3 or 4 years, but a couple of years in, I finally figured out a way to sort of summarize a lot of the classes that I was having, which was, of course, there'd be different subdisciplines of design or art, but it's really, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that what you're trying to do in your academic experience is learn how to learn, where to learn, from whom to learn, and that can really expand. But learning how to learn and learning how to communicate in as many different sub-languages of English and or writing and speaking and drawing or whatever it is. Learning how to learn and learning how to communicate. If you can figure out as many different ways to do those 2 things, then actually whatever discipline you're in translates to a variety of other disciplines pretty easily, because those are the cross-discipline
Yes.
learning skills that are necessary.
But for those who are here now, I don't see too many returning faces from the previous session, so I just wanted to close up the discussion, or at least wrap up neatly in a bow the discussion around the informative interview. The idea is that you're setting up a relationship, or you're setting up small conversations, 10 to 15-minute blocks, 15 to 20-minute blocks, with knowledgeable people in a career that you're looking at getting into. This could be a very high-ranking person who's just decided to give you a couple minutes of their time so that you can understand better what they're doing, whether that's an architect or whether that's a nursing executive, you know, and that's the path that you've decided that you want to look at. These folks can give you a couple minutes and can give you the building blocks of what they would want to know coming out of college. You go into this with little expectations on them. Don't go in expecting an internship or expecting to become their personal assistant, although those 2 things can happen from these discussions. And you definitely want to go into it with a spirit of, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to make what you guys are doing successful? You know, whether it's their company. And maybe that's what leads to the internship discussion. If the idea is that you are sharing in this time that you meet with them, go in that direction. There's a lot of reasons why they would want to invest in people coming out of college. And so those investigatory, informational interviews, are a great building tool. So, next I'd move us on. Let me see. What does it mean to be, well, and Nathan's already touched on this a bit, but I'd like to hear from our career coaches too. What does it mean to be well-rounded? And what benefits come from study outside of one's immediate field?
Well, being more well-rounded gives you more of a global view, and when I say global view, I don't mean of other continents and such, I just mean of everything that a person can be, as well as other people. You get to have conversations with people that you can find out you've got more in common with, which is a really wonderful thing. You mentioned in my bio that my hobby is welding. So, I'm a career coach by day, and then on the weekends I go burn steel. And I absolutely love that because I get to have completely different conversations. Trust me, the conversations I have as a career coach are completely different than I have as a welder. Sometimes, because I do a lot of career coaching for some of the women's welding groups that I belong to. And there are different unions and such, and so those conversations are really, really cool. But at the same time, I will say this, so I started welding about 7 years ago, and I've been doing career coaching professionally since 2001, but I did this kind of on my own when I was involved in a different career before that. So I have solved just about every single problem that a career coach can solve for a client. Whether it's career transition, whether it's getting fired, whether it's whatever, it doesn't matter. Resume writing, interviewing, I have solved just about every single problem you can imagine. Then I started welding, and I had to relearn something that was really difficult. There's a lot of math involved, and I'm not a math person at all. But I started to realize that I started solving my career coaching problems a little differently. Because I have this new perspective, and I've started using different muscles and different areas of my brain than I've been using for the past 20 plus years. And so it's really been interesting for me to see, that kind of progression as far as I approach problems differently and I find different solutions. And I wouldn't have had that experience. I would have just kind of, I don't want to say set myself on autopilot, because I don't check out or anything. It's just bring a problem to me, I've solved it. But now I kind of have a different dimension when I'm solving problems. So to me, that's what being well-rounded means.
Well, for me, to take your welding, I remember when you first started that was wild, I thought. I've known Lauren for 15 years,
Yeah.
and we met on a panel.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And she actually served as one of my mentors early on in the day. So I remember her moments of clarity, and I said, she's not going to do that. And then she did it. It's like, she's doing it. And she showed her little things on. But it reminded me of, I have a personal training certification I never used. And if the career thing didn't take off, I'd be teaching people how to do dumbbell rows. But outside of that, I mean, one of the things I think I learned, though, was the importance of being able to recruit as many muscles as you possibly can in exercise to maximize your efforts and your opportunities and your results. And, in the college arena, that kind of jump starts your ability to be able to exercise all of your muscles of life into your career, and vice versa. So you have this exchange of information where you can get your information from life and career and kind of create your own path in that sense. And so when you have a well-rounded background, that ultimately means that whatever your exposures have been, you've been able to insert both in both ways so that you can have outcomes to either find solutions for people, or that you've been able to serve people, whether it's for pay or it's for free, or to make the world better, and to be able to come out on top for yourself and feel like you have this fullness, this robust ecosystem within yourself to be able to create these opportunities going forward. So really, it's not as hard and as difficult. It just has many different layers. And as you go, more you learn, the more layers you get exposed to, the more you'll be able to kind of, again, recruit all those muscles as many as possible to come out to make the world a better place and also make your career a better place.
It was very well put. I really, really appreciate that. There's, and I was several times I was trying to think of something that you covered that. That you put that in a very, very succinct sort of way. I think on a very different way of looking at exactly the same thing, I think that there's something really valuable about the more well-rounded you are, the more likely it is that you can hang in more conversations longer. And this is really important from a networking perspective, the ability to actually, like, you walk into a place, there's a group of people there. If you know one thing deeply, you can go deep with that person. It's always fun when you bump into somebody who knows something as much as you do, and you can really go down a rabbit hole, and you can have a lot of fun there. But then you change the subject, and it's like, oh, you can't hang in that conversation. You change the subject, they can't hang over there. They really know one thing deeply, but they don't know very many things widely, right? I had a professor who I loved, but as soon as the topic left art, he was done. He's like, that's all I do, that's all I know. I'm like the Hawkeyes had just made the Rose Bowl, and he couldn't even hang in. Like he worked at the University of Iowa. It's like you can't even translate over to just a slightly different subject. But the more well-rounded you are, the more conversations you can engage in. Therefore, that extends the more people you can talk to, which extends the more people that you can network with, the more people that you can take some of their talents, mix it with some of your talents, and end up with something new. Or take some of that knowledge from them, some of the knowledge that you got from somebody else, and combine to make something new.
Well, yeah, I'll go on, but
Well, I was going to add, I don't think there's a real leader that people admire who doesn't recruit all the learning possible to make themselves better, make their people better. It's just one of those things where learning is perpetual, it's not static. It doesn't just, you don't learn and then you're done. We used to think that way, but in this world, no matter what your educational background is and no matter what your working background is, you're going to have to evolve. You have no choice. So the choices are, if you evolve, then you'll eventually be able to create a pathway. Some faster, some slower, but that's okay. The speed doesn't always count. If you don't evolve, then people won't bother to look your way. So only the people that are creating pathways are hang out with the people who create pathways. Everybody else who's static stays static. So, you know, the choice is yours. It's like an old rap song. You can either get with this or you can get with that.
yeah. Man, if you said that when Vince was here, he would have lost his
But that's what it is. It's, you know, and most of you and all of you are going to want to be with the people that are creating those opportunities and to be perpetual learners.
What a great segue. So the next place to go from diversity of thought is diversity of thought in networking, and how we network and why we network. And Nathan, you touched on it. The people that you network with are the ones that bring new ideas into the mix. Mark, you said it yourself. You can be this or hang with people who are this. Networking is just hanging with people. Networking is, and this is, we're not expecting everybody who's here to have 500 plus contacts in their LinkedIn yet, but networking is such an integral part of finding your path. You can't do this alone. None of us do this alone. And so if you guys want to talk about networking skills, what you found most useful, maybe some early hang-ups that you had about it that you've gotten over and how, and just things you'd want to share with students who are just beginning their network, or believe that they're just beginning their network.
Well, I am the consummate extrovert, so I love being put into a room and saying, I'm going to meet people. I have no problem with that. I joke that if I were on a reality show, I'd be the one saying, I am here to make friends. I'm not here to make friends. I am. So I think it's kind of important to, if you are going into networking, well, I'll say this though, I've got a really good tip if anyone is an introvert and, I don't want to say afraid of networking, but just, oh my gosh, this is not my thing. Here's what you do. If you are put into a networking situation, let's say it's like a in-person mixer kind of thing, you find me, okay? You find the person who is most like me, the one who is chatting, shaking people's hands, looking around for, by the way, I'm looking for you. I'm looking for that person who isn't comfortable because I want to make you comfortable. So I'm going to go over and introduce myself to you. But you find the person who is most like me and say, I'm new to this, not really comfortable with networking. Can you introduce me to someone? Here's who I'm looking to meet. You know, just something like that. I will take care of you. It becomes my duty, like my sworn duty almost as an extrovert, as the president of the extrovert club, that I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to introduce you to a couple people, and then I'm going to leave because I don't want to hover, but I'm going to check back in. So if you are an introvert and you don't like networking, you rely on people who do enjoy it, and let us help you. More than happy to do so. I tell this to all of my clients, and my clients are in every stage of career up until retirement. And they all come back and say, that worked. Worked like a charm, I met the right people, I passed some business cards, never was expecting to do that, and it worked. So find the people like me because we want to help.
I find myself in a situation where, because I'm a university professor, I can sort of sit in the same place and the network's going to kind of come to me. A whole group of students are going to show up on the first day of a class. And of course, any of them can be somebody that could be a lifetime collaborator. You know what I mean? James and I have worked together for years. We ran a gallery together. We did a variety of different things, worked on a variety of projects together. Somebody showed up in one of my classes one day, right? I've got friends who showed up in one of my classes one day and they were the DJ for our gallery for 5 years. You know what I mean? It's because, you know, a network to me is your team of collaborators, and you're able to do bigger things with more people. I did spend a lot of time in theater, and of course you can have a one-man show where you write the script, you perform it, you set the lights, and you invite the audience, and you put up the posters, all that stuff. But that sucks. The much better way to do it is to get a whole team of people, the person who's great at posters to make the posters, the person who's great at marketing to do the marketing, the person who's great at lights to do the lights, the person who's great at writing to do the writing, and you show up and act, or you show up and sew, or you show up and do whatever it is that you do, and you all work together to create this bigger thing. And that is, in my mind, the reason for a network is that I have, in mine, it's all just on my phone, not so much the LinkedIn thing, it's on my phone, and my phone is just priceless to me, because I have everybody who I've ever worked with, enough that I had to get their phone number, and now they're all, don't burn the bridges, and they're there forever. They're there forever. Suddenly I'm just like, oh, somebody wants to get a vinyl record made. I know the person who's done that, and I can just call them and say, hey, can you come and talk to my student? He wants to get a vinyl record made, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's possible because I've just built that network, and I'm happy to share that with anybody else that's willing to share their network with me, and that's just how it works. And now you can do the big play, you can do the big, put the record out, you can do whatever it is. I got called the other day by my friend Liliana. She's like, we're doing, I'm bringing 5 bands and 5 painters, and I've got to have you if you're available. And I haven't talked to Liliana in like 5 or 6 years, and she just hits me up out of the blue. She's like, yo, and I'm like, oh, of course, you know. And I'm like, explain to her that I'm teaching painting a lot the next couple of years, and she's like, can I come down and just play the viola when I'm warming up for this thing for your class? It's just like, it's just partnership, it's just trade, it's just collaboration.
Yeah, this panel in a large way is a meta portrait of my network.
Mm-hmm.
Mark is a person I met by accident. Nathan's a person I met on purpose. Lauren is a person that Mark knows.
Yeah.
So she's an extension of my network.
Yeah.
Because when Mark and I were putting this idea together, I said, do you have any friends? And he said, I have just the person.
Yeah.
Pete was friends with my wife. And so like it's just a matter of like, like these are things that we use in our network that we have in our network that our network has, and we put these things together. So when my network, which is Enterprise, reaches out to me and says we want to do something cool, I use my network to put something together. And I really doubt that you guys would just come to watch me talk, for this by myself. I think the panel is where we can get some interest, some friction, some ideas, and we can bounce off of each other, and that's where the value is.
I'm an introvert. I'm totally opposite of Lauren. But it's a little bit more complicated than what Laura explained. You see, I'm the type of introvert that's more comfortable in front of 200 people than 2 or 3 people. believe it or not. I have a complicated relationship with people now. Now, and I know there are a few people that are like that. I'm much more, I used to do one-on-one coaching and that whole thing. I said, this is for Lauren. And not literally, but it says that this doesn't work for me. This drains me too much. But doing presentations or having panel discussions or writing is a whole lot better because I can talk to many people instead of just one. So I think that when you find out what energizes you is what you're going to go with. So you might feel more comfortable going to a bigger party than to a smaller dinner party, which I still do both, don't get me wrong, but I thrive in a bigger group because I like looking at and have passive energy and find those kind of people than a small one and say, well, I don't like those people, and you only have one choice because you're in that group. That really sucks. When I have a lot of choices, I'm good. But I think ultimately you find the energy that works for you and you go with that. But having said that, you almost can't make your network really, or make your net work is without doing one-on-ones at times. And before, as I was saying, shadowing people, getting to know, asking questions. I think I mentioned last week, people love talking about themselves. People really do. That's the reason why I do podcasts, I do video, because I just let people talk, no expectations. I mean, there are some expectations, but as somebody who writes, and I've written hundreds of articles, probably more than what I probably should have done in the past, but I love writing, that's what I do, but that's very informative for me. And I think you do what's very informative to you. So some people you can have a writing relationship for a long period of time, especially if you use the tools right, you have a good approach. You can use almost any medium you want. Starting a podcast is not a bad idea as a student. These days, there are podcast platforms. You could just use your phone and talk with your friend, upload it automatically, and have it go out to the world just to see what happens. It's just that simple. And getting the feedback can be very informative to you. And there are people, we have samples of people who've done that at this particular point. They were nobody, but they ended up, because they had great conversation, they were able to even talk to a few famous people, and they're out there. So don't putting limits on what you could do is bad, but do choose the medium and how you want to do it that makes sense for you, and only you can answer that question ultimately. Don't let anybody else tell you what you need to do to only get a certain amount of results, because at this particular point, we have a lot of data to show that has been done all kinds of ways.
Well, before we open it up to the question and answer session, one of the things that I've heard from students consistently leading into this is that they are really curious about how to balance their resume to get past screening software. And so in my conversations with Lauren, that's something she's passionate about. That was something I wanted to bring to this as a real value add. I think anybody who's here probably has some questions about that. How do we get our resumes in front of human eyes? How do we get past them? Well, what are the screening softwares called? Can you give us like a 101 on this and take us through? I think there may be some questions that follow that as well.
Great, okay, well, I welcome any questions, because yeah, I actually do love talking about this stuff, which is why I wish I got invited to more parties, because I'm an extrovert, but every time I do, I turn it into a career coaching session, so. I'm a bummer at parties. Okay, so the software is called Applicant Tracking Software, ATS. So if you hear me say ATS, that's what I'm referring to. ATS is software program that does many, many, many things. For candidates, it typically does two things. ATS is the online application, and it is also the keyword scanner. So if you've heard of keyword scanning programs or keyword scanners in general, that's what this is. So, like I said, there are about 1,000 things that it does on the back end, but that's the employer's concerns. Some of them that you'll hear of frequently, there's Workday, there's Taleo. Taleo was purchased by Oracle a number of years ago for something like, billions of dollars. But the interesting thing is that Oracle then soon, Taleo soon became the #1 for years. It was the #1 ATS. And then during the pandemic, this little company called Workday comes along and knocks Taleo off of its axis and becomes the #1. So this is which I just love. I just love stuff like that in the career game. But what this means is get to know Workday, because it's not just the ATS program, it's an onboarding program. And so a lot of companies have this. If you get hired through a company, your onboarding is going to be through Workday. Your scheduling is going to be through Workday. Your days off, and PTO is going to be through Workday. You find out about your benefits through Workday. There's a very good chance that at some point in your career, you're going to bump up against this software, so you might as well get to know it. It's pretty slick for what it does, and it's just going to keep expanding. But one of the questions that I get from candidates all the time is, why do I have to go in to an application, type out every single thing about my career history if I'm just going to upload my resume anyway? As one of the most frequent questions that I get asked about applying for jobs. And here's the answer. Your resume is always just going to be your marketing piece. It's like your commercial. The application is a legal document. So if all they had you do was upload your resume, you're not attesting to anything that the information I gave is legal and accurate and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason. And if you haven't applied for a lot of jobs yet, trust me, in a year from now, you're going to be saying, oh yeah, that's why that lady said that I have to do both, because it's two different things. Because trust me, it's just about the #1 frustration of people who are seriously looking for jobs and going through a lot of these applications. But it is important that you, keep your application and your resume pretty similar. Some of the things that gets candidates kicked out of ATS. It can be, one of the frustrating things for me is that a lot of these things are just choices, and they're not necessarily that the candidate is making wrong choices, but no one is teaching what keeps candidates out of ATS. So formatting. You don't want any text boxes. You don't want any borders, like page borders, text boxes, tables. Where people use tables on their resumes is at the top if they've got a list of core competencies or skills, key skills. A lot of times they'll want this organized nicely and lined up, and so people put a table in that. The back end formatting on a table acts like a force field. It keeps the ATS out of it, okay? So for an easy analogy, think of ATS like a claw machine. You know the claw machines at carnivals where you put a quarter in and it drops a claw down, you try to pick up a prize and get a dippy little stuffed animal or whatever. Think of ATS in the same way. So what this ATS is doing, as the claw machine, it's going into your resume, and yes, the resume part of it. It also works with the application, but for right now, into the resume. And it takes out specific sections, but ATS is software. So it can only always do what it's programmed to do. So it's going to go get your contact information. Claw machine drops, get your contact information, drops it into the system. Then it's going to go get your experience section. Boom, boom. Education, boom. License, anything like that. If you're working with a format where it's an infographic, where you've got charts and things like that, or it's a 2-column format, that's a very common format for graphic designers and people in the arts. Beautiful format, doesn't work with ATS. A lot of times applicants don't even get seen. Your job is to get seen by the human. It's to pass the program filters to get seen by the human. Boring, traditional, reverse chronological format is always going to be best because that's how ATS works. Next, you want keywords. So you have to do a lot of research. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people go to the job description that they're applying for and saying, okay, I'm going to pick the keywords out of this job description. There is no rule, guide, law, sternly worded note that requires any company to put the keywords they're looking for in their job description. So a lot of times, my clients will send me a job description that they want to apply for and say, how do we get the keywords out of here? I'll look through it, it's like, well, there are like 4, and we're looking for about 50, okay? So what you want to do is not just look at that one job description, you want to pull up a lot of different job descriptions for the same type of job, but make sure that they're written by different companies, because this company is going to be better at writing job descriptions than this company. If you get 3 or 4 of those, you're just increasing your odds that you're going to be touching on all the keywords that the employers are looking for. From there, then you can pull out a list. Now, here's an excellent, amazing cheat, which I've been using a lot lately with great success, and it's ChatGPT. So if you put a couple of job descriptions into ChatGPT and say, and you have to give it a good prompt. ChatGPT is like a dog. It works better when it has a job to do, okay? That's how you train dogs, that's how you train ChatGPT. So you tell Chat, you are my resume writer, or you are my recruiter, or you are my career coach, whatever your particular task is at that time. But, so if I were putting in a couple of different job descriptions, trying to pull out keywords, I would say, you are my resume writer. From these job descriptions, which keywords should I make sure to have on my resume? And then it's just going to go through and give you the entire list. It's not always right, but it's better, it's more right than wrong. Which I can't say about that in chat in every function, but for this one it's working pretty well. I'm having good luck with it. So that's just an easy one. There are also ATS simulators that are, some are free to use, some are pay, subscription. One that I love is called theprofessional.me, M-E. You put your resume in there, and then you upload a job description, and it does the scanning for you, and it gives you a grade, a percentage. You have a 23% match. You have a 43% match. Here's the thing. You are looking for about an 80% match between the keywords and your resume. Employers start looking at candidates who have a 75 to 80% match. If they're looking for more entry-level candidates, they'll drop down to 75. The more professional and the more skilled that these jobs have to be, they're looking at about 80 to 85% match. So there's less leeway, less latitude, the higher up on the ladder you get. So keywords are everything. I tell people that keywords to a resume writer is like salt to a chef. You can't do your job without it. So as you are writing your resumes, look out for those keywords. In job descriptions, another way to go, and you mentioned that I don't think that you're the biggest LinkedIn fan, but I am. One of the places that I go if I'm stuck on keywords is I'll go to a couple of people's LinkedIn profiles who already do the job and look at their skills section. The skills section literally is a list of keywords. So there are a lot of different places you can go to get this information. Lastly, just Google. You can put it, here's my extensive Boolean. I make finger quotes. So in a Google search, you would say resume keywords, accountant, resume keywords, nurse, RN, whatever it is, but resume keywords, resume writer. And Google will actually pull up a list of good keywords for you to have. So there's plenty of places for you to find this information and then incorporate those into your resume.
Well, I think this really, really works for people who have very defined roles, very defined job titles that they're chasing. I've never heard my job title before.
Yeah.
Before I applied for it. My resume is super artsy, would be shot to death on site by any screening software. It's only text boxes, it's only graphs. But I was applying to a job that I work at currently. I was applying to an employer that I work at currently. I've networked extensively with the people who are hiring me.
Yeah.
And network is sort of that magic bullet around screening.
Yeah.
But if I were to try and take this, if I were to try and look for something that's similar where maybe you're a creative professional or you're a professional that has a hard time putting a name on what it is you do, I can't type in cool guy keywords, that's creative and knows this and has a background in hospitality and technology. Where do I even start? So, I mean, I'm not coming from it I'm an accountant
Yeah.
standpoint. I'm coming at it from this.
Yeah, so there are a couple different things that you can do, fortunately, but here's the thing, it really does come down to the keywords, so you have to look. You have to do some research and figure out what jobs would be most similar to what you're looking for. That can be done through LinkedIn, it can be done through, I am really anti-Glassdoor right now because of something they've been doing over the past couple of weeks, but you can look this up over Glassdoor. By just putting in a couple of your keywords, skills that you want to do. So, cool guy, right? But what would be an actual skill that you think you might use on the job? Would it be graphic design? Would it be mentoring? Would it be training?
Well, for me, it's like ideation. Like ideas excite me a lot. Like that's one of my top skills. And so like jobs that center around ideas.
Okay, I'm not sure if ideation would be an actual key,
Right.
but
Creative
here's,
problem solving.
what's that?
Creative problem
Creative,
solving.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, so then I was thinking, well, maybe program management or something like that. So the first thing that we would, quite frankly, the first thing I would do is put into LinkedIn, go to their jobs portal, and put in ideation.
Yeah.
Because I like to just say, who knows what's gonna be out there, right? Who knows what's gonna be out there? So I would go into the jobs portal of LinkedIn, and in the search function, put in ideation and see what comes up. If anything comes up, it's at least gonna give us some direction of where to go. Is this the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? If it's the wrong thing, then let's try some different words.
Okay.
And just keep doing this, because frankly, and I understand for someone who's like creative and esoteric and I wanna do a little bit of everything and I've done a little bit of everything, that's great, but it still comes down to the keywords for most companies.
Sure.
And ATS used to be only for the bigger companies. It's so affordable now that a little, 1-2 person shop like ResuMayDay, I can afford an ATS program. And if it means that hiring people who I'm specifically looking for is gonna be easier, every company can afford this now, and hiring is always the most hated task of any company. No one likes to go through the recruiting and hiring tab because it means that you're dealing with a lot of people, they're dealing with more people who are unqualified for the job than who are qualified, and that's a pain. That's a pain in the butt, and employees don't like doing that. Employers don't like doing that, which is why ATS is so much more prevalent now anyway. So you have to start with somewhere. However, I will say this. The best career managers, people who manage their careers, are networking so hard and so often that it is possible to make ATS nothing more than a formality. That, and honestly, quite honestly, if I were looking for a job today, I know ATS inside and out, so my resume will be squared away. However, I would be leaning so hard into my network, saying, who do you know? What do you know? What can you tell me? Who's hiring? Here's what I'm looking for. And I'd be doing this daily.
Yeah.
So that I would have, within a couple hours, I would have probably 20 companies just waiting for my resume because I've got other people saying, you need to talk to this person. She knows what she's doing. Let's bring her in for an interview. So that the ATS is basically just waiting to push my resume through. That's what good networking can do.
And that's really the point that I wanted to end us at in that regard, is to say, if you have experience and a network, figure out the ATS side. If you're just getting started and don't have a network, figure out the ATS side.
Yeah.
And then you can
You
go
can't
at it from
escape
that
it.
way, and then
Yeah.
as you build your network and you build those opportunities, it'll make more sense. But for somebody who has the network and the experience, build the ATS side so that it's bolstering that, and so that you're getting more callbacks from the places that you do.
Yeah.
working at.
Absolutely.
That makes more sense. Well, I appreciate that. Do you guys have anything to throw in on those? I mean, it's really a master class there. That was great.
No, that actually, I think that introduced a lot of things that I hadn't heard before. I've had the same job for 23 years.
But you love AI pretty hard, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
so,
no,
there's some real interesting things around that.
Well, the only thing I think about is that networking, you can't get past not applying online these days, but you can give your resume and yourself more visibility by networking. and the ATS actually becomes more of a database than it does an actual screening, keeping you out.
Becomes a
Recruiters-
formality at that point.
Yeah, recruiters are gonna tell you, look, write for people, ultimately. Write for a human. Don't try to make it rocket science, as a lot of people try to do. Ultimately, the networking is going to give way to say, hey, make sure that you apply, give me a copy of your resume, still apply online, but that person will hopefully know you well enough to be able to say, hey, this is a person, being able to vouch for, at least take a look at that person. If they're not able to reference you, they can recommend looking at you. And that also gives you a smaller edge over the competition, which any edge at all really helps.
I thought it was really interesting what you said about your resume is your marketing piece. So this week I had somebody apply for a job, and I was the one interviewing them.
Okay.
And their cover letter was just words. It was a page full of words, and all the words meant something, and it was daunting just looking at it. I'm sure that it passed the ATS test.
Mhm.
It was like they copy and pasted every keyword that they had
Oh,
and tried to
Yeah.
put it in basic sentence structure, but for the most part, it was very daunting, and it was a hang-up for me as I went into the interview with them, not feeling overwhelmed before we even met. Because when I looked at the cover letter, when I looked at the resume, they were both so dense. So is it possible, am I onto something, is it possible to overdo it?
Oh, of
With
course.
the- okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, well, and that's the thing. So you're writing for two entities, okay? You're writing your resume and your cover letter for two entities. The first one, yeah, it's the screener. It's the robots. The second one, the human. Don't forget the human. That's very, very important. So
That'll
you
be our tagline for these things.
don't forget the human. So, so you actually have to, no one wants a big list of keywords, and certainly chat can go on to keyword or, even verbiage that no one uses. You read it, it's like, yeah, a robot wrote this. We've all heard of that happening with AI. And it's true. So you always have to go back and do that. But I'll tell you what, for cover letters, 3 simple paragraphs. That's it, 3 simple paragraphs. The first paragraph, what you know and love about the company. Why you want to work there above other companies. Flatter them, okay? Flattery will get you everywhere. Second, how you're going to solve their problems. Your skills to their problem. And you know what their problem is because it's based on the job that they're hiring for. Third, ask for the interview. Tell them that you will be delighted to make your schedule available at whatever time works for them. That's it. It doesn't have to be a long monologue, or diatribe or anything. It just, 3 simple paragraphs. They can be short, just a couple sentences each. That's it.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, because one last thing about resumes, objective at the top of a resume, or do you list,
Summary.
a summary?
Yeah, so every employer knows what your objective is if you're sending them your resume. Your objective is to get a job, right? Summary. In the 20 plus years I've been writing resumes, I've never written an objective statement. And if you have an objective statement, it sounds like to obtain a challenging position in a growing company where I can utilize my skills in education, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes there are some extra nouns and verbs in there somewhere, but not usually. A summary statement, talk about what you love to do in this particular role that you're going for. What is it about that role that you love to do that will distinguish you from other candidates? That's what your summary should be. It distinguishes you in 3 to 5 sentences, distinguishes you from other candidates. So really talking about what you love to do in that job is a great way to distinguish yourself because you won't know who the other candidates are. Plus the other candidates are probably going to write an objective. So.
Thank you. At this point, I'd open it up to the floor. If anybody has any questions, it'd be great to, if you've prepared anything.
Honestly, this is the first time I've heard of ATS at all. I always imagined that it would probably be a lot if it was just like one guy going through every resume. So it makes sense.
Which is the reason for ATS, because
Yeah.
especially now, so many jobs are remote and global and everything. Employers used to have, these many candidates, which was impossible to handle by one person. Now they've got, 18 times that. Motorola, when Motorola puts out one job ad, within moments, they get thousands of applicants. There's no way a human can ever go through that volume, hence ATS, because it can go through any number of volume in moments.
Yeah, just that like, not a single one of my professors, I'm a digital marketing major, not a single one of my professors have ever like mentioned this at all, which is kind of astonishing, because I've gone through 3 classes where they've gone over making resumes.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well,
okay.
I can speak to that a little bit too on the SXU side. Like the whole point of pulling career services and advising apart, is to create a specific area where we're going to have a coordinator that works with students, just helping build resumes, maximizing for ATS. All of our candidates for the coordinator position have talked about AI, have talked about screening software. They're coming in with those things. Events like this are meant to be informative places where, as this series continues, you guys are going to have a consistent group of people that's here talking about these needs and bringing things in. One of the things our faculty does incredibly well here is communicate clear messages that they built over a number of years. What we want to do in career is find ways of infusing what the business world and what the world outside is saying it needs, and presenting that to our faculty and saying, hey, here's feedback from the outside, and like, what are ways that you guys can incorporate this into what you talk about? So the goal here is at the end of the day to end up with more informed students who have a better understanding of what they need to do.
And you're
Oh,
oh,
we have a
except this
squirrel
little,
visitor.
your
The
friend.
school's actually nuts.
Do you want some resume advice, buddy?
Yeah.
You know, your instructors too, they may just not, they may have been teaching here for a while where they don't, I've got time in the trenches, you know, and
Well, and ultimately, I think that, just like we were talking about before in terms of networking and being able to accomplish something bigger, I think there really is a necessity for there to be those aspects of academic affairs, which are more the subject matter experts, and then student affairs, which tend to be more the sort of professional development sort of piece. And together, you can sort of pull together these elements. But I'll also say that with almost every given semester, especially when I was teaching web design, a little less so when I'm teaching oil painting, but the way that every industry evolves is sometimes lightning speed.
oh, my goodness.
Changing on a regular basis.
AI, I mean, overnight.
And to that note, one of my favorite things that happened to me just last year, at the end of the summer, I started working on a project with a woman who had been in my network for years and years. But she reached out, she needed somebody to help with some video stuff. When we first started talking, I said, I've got an idea, but it won't be possible until October. And she's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it's something that I want to do with AI, but I know the current state and the speed that's moving. It will be possible in October, but now let's just work on the parts we can do now, because by October, then we'll be able to do what I think I want to do.
Tech will be there.
And the tech hit about 2 weeks early, and we were
That's
ready to go.
impressive.
So I mean, the speed of the evolution of many disciplines is breakneck speed right now. And to that matter, it's a necessity for everybody, students, faculty, staff, to constantly be touching base with what's happening in their industries as well as in but again, it's the lifelong learning piece. And we task different people with different aspects of that for sure.
I work with people, like I said, at all stages in their career. And so I've worked with plenty of people who, either retired early or got laid off or, whatever happened where they're in their 50s now looking, really literally now looking for their first job because they got their first job out of college and didn't really have to do a full-fledged job search. And they are just lost. A lot of them are just lost. They haven't been building a network. They have no idea what LinkedIn is. I've actually had to convince people, I'll just say this. When Obama was president, I had to convince older people that Obama was not tracking them through their LinkedIn profiles. And it's a conversation I had to have multiple times. So it wasn't just like,
I was hoping he would, but
I know, right?
No,
Right?
I
It's like,
never got the call.
come on, please.
Prepared to
You
do
know-
a presidential portrait, but then you called and
No,
then
he called.
Come October maybe, but right now the technology.
I would weld him in platinum.
And that's a
But-
lesson in visibility itself, because he was the first president to really adapt the digital world,
Yeah,
as opposed to his opponents were very slow in adapting,
yeah.
and he was able to get out to more people a lot quicker, and faster, and along with his ability to communicate, it was just a no-brainer for a lot of people. Not based on his depth of knowledge, but the fact that he was able to do and relate to a lot of people that were your age at that particular time. So all that to be said,
Like Clinton,
yeah,
that's that
so,
Clinton one.
yeah.
Matt,
So-
was there an additional piece to the question, or, I mean, like, you were just kind of marveling at the
Yeah, I
newness
was-
of the subject, but like, what would the question be around ATS?
I was just like kind of glad that I came here to know about this now.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so it's, I mean, it is critical. You know, your instructors, they want to instruct you on, well, like you know, the academic pieces of digital art, and it doesn't mean that they know resume writing. I will say this, job searches have really been quite static for decades up until the 2000s. The job search that people had in the 1960s was not all that different than people were running in 1990, you know. And then technology happened, and now I tell people the job search that you're going to be performing today looks nothing like the job search that people were doing 5 years ago. That, you know, because of technology, the way that we communicate with people, the way, even the jobs that we consider, the jobs that are being created, you know, that don't exist now, there's a very good chance that maybe the second or third job that you have out of college does not exist right now.
I hope.
You know,
That-
yeah.
And that's a great point too, because I think since the pandemic, we all know what that is, you know, job search advice changes practically in a flash.
Mhm.
And it's not particularly that employers look for anything different. They look for a difference in presentation. And how you present yourself makes all the difference in the world.
And the tools that you're using
And
to
the
connect
tools
with
that
them.
you're using
Yeah.
to connect with them make all the difference in the world, because it's fluid. What may be relevant back in 2020 may not be as relevant right now. So I would say, you know, you gotta almost keep your finger on the pulse of, like in the nursing industry has changed a lot since the pandemic. And the attitudes and the way people work now. And even though there might have been some careers that might have been kind of like landmines, but to do nursing remotely, it was kind of novelty back in 2016. As to now, it's very possible people are actually doing it, making a living. It's just one example. So, you know, yeah, those are things to keep your ears and eyes open. But look for specifically in your industry. And you know, for you guys, getting into certain industries, start to now connect with those people and see what it looks like in real life, so that you know you make informed decisions as you begin to graduate and be able to venture on.
Yeah, I think we've touched on a couple different things. I loved how Lauren talked earlier in the discussion about the pandemic and the effect that it had on ATS tools. We've talked about the vehicle that you're using and the road that you're on as an analogy for this. The vehicles are changing daily, and that's really where this is at, Matt, is that the vehicles, the tools that we're using are changing because the road is changing. The road is changing itself. Like, since the pandemic, we've adjusted how work from home happens, what commuting looks like. That opened up, you can live anywhere in the world and do your job, you know, in a much bigger way, where companies were much less likely to do that before. So as the road changes, the vehicles change, and what I want to say is none of this is inherently bad. Change is complicated, so it can be connected to negative feelings, but the fact that these things are changing is, in many ways, good.
There are
And the
always
vehicles
opportunities.
adapting to that road,
Yeah.
the idea that there's one big company that does ATS before the pandemic, and then this little punk rock group comes out of nowhere and
Yep.
starts something else and takes over before the pandemic. Skype was a thing,
Right.
and Zoom wasn't. And
Yeah.
almost overnight, Skype was a memory, and Zoom was what everyone was using.
Yeah.
And so, like, we see these watershed moments where things change at a very fast pace. So I don't believe that the change is bad. What I want is informed students who know how to handle those changes and surf those waves. So that's what these things are geared towards. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. Do we have any other questions or input from alumni?
I have input if anybody wants to hear it.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, Workday is what we use. I work at Chris Hospital, and it's that whole system. And like you mentioned too, I have like all the extra job opportunities and simpler connected to it with the time. And it was so funny because when I first saw that, I was like, what is this? And it looked so big that I didn't want to play with it. And how I got my like first jobs was I actually went to job fairs here. And my first externship was at the University of Chicago. So I mean, take advantage.
It's a nice one to have on your resume.
Yeah, yeah. So take advantage of those things if you can, because almost when you go to a job fair, it is like your actual interview. Like shake their hand. Like I always even put on a suit and came with a briefcase with my resume, and it looked weird because everyone else was like in hoodies, but I was the one who was like standing out.
Mhm.
And then people like that, and then I would hand it to them and I would get calls back. So that helps a lot. But like things I need to do to be better is I don't even like to mess around on LinkedIn. Everyone's like, why don't you? That's stupid. So I need to do that. And I need to get better at like learning Workday myself. And now I even want to change my resume considering if I apply to other stuff or other positions, how it's going to be looked at. So yeah, like concept adaptation, and then take advantage of what you can in person.
And for your sake, we just came off of the College to Career Expo recently, and that was like 3 weeks ago. And we had 90 employers, we had 400 students go, which was a great turnout for us. One of the benefits of St. Xavier is that a lot of colleges will have their career fairs, but they won't, the academic side won't necessarily support that. They'll say, well, you gotta make it to class, whereas St. Xavier closed classes for the day.
Yeah,
Which is really nice because it gives you the ability to say, the time I would have gone to class, I'm now gonna commit to going and meeting with these employers. And I'm making a pledge that as I make these new expos, they're gonna get more and more useful. Right now, I'm being much more selective about the people that we're bringing in. You know, initially it's how many employers can we get through the doors? And now it's looking at who came, where the foot traffic was, where the success was, where the student feedback said was what, good, which employers really loved us and really enjoyed being there. And we're gonna continue making those opportunities better. So I love what you had to say, and then I would just encourage anyone that goes to an expo to research the companies ahead of time. I list them, as they register, I list them on the website, so you can plan in advance the companies that you want to meet with, look at their websites, get an understanding of who they are, and that will set you apart. Because when you go up to their table and you're like, I love what you guys are about, I really love that you're doing this and this and this, what I didn't understand from your website is it looked like you're committed to this, is that something that you're into? And then they're gonna be just blown away because you're coming at it from a place of knowledge. So those are tools that we wanna put in your hands, and as an alumni, you're more than welcome to come back to those events. If that's something you wanna do. Just reach out to me and we'll set it up, so.
And sign up for painting in the fall. We'll be
No, I'm so stoked about the opportunity to get those last $50 because I even remember Professor Pete. Is he still there? Did he go? I didn't have him, but I did the Cougars Leadership Workshop here too, which I recommend. Good thing to get some skills under your belt. And he was talking about his podcasting course. And I was like, oh, dope, I want to learn that.
Yeah.
Because just for me, like podcasting we were just talking about, that's everything now.
Lifelong learning is probably the most important way to sort of focus your energy. It's just like, we run into this all the time where we're coming up on the senior year and they're doing their capstone in the art department. It's like, this one show, I've put everything that I've ever wanted to do into this one thing. It's like, this is just the next show, and then there's gonna be the next show and the next show. It's like, it's not like you only have 3 more weeks to learn, ever. You know what I mean? It's just like, just figure out what you can right now, learn from that experience, then figure out what you need to learn next, and learn from that experience, and figure out what you need to learn next, and learn from that, and it's like, you will spend the rest of your life, there's no such thing as old dogs can't learn new tricks. I've taught my dad and my mom a million things, and it's because they're curious and they're interested in learning. And it's like, as long as you've got that curiosity, as long as you have the ambition, then it's like, take the opportunities, and that's about it.
I started welding in my 40s, so.
I'm trying to get that mindset too, because sometimes, like, even now, I'm only 27, and I'm like, did I make the right greatest choice? What do I want to do now? But there's still so much time and a lot of opportunities if you actually look into them. Like even what you were saying too, with the telehealth medicine, they even do that in hospital. So a lot of the psych NPs and the psych doctors don't even round on the patients, they literally wheel in a tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they
That's
talk
right.
to them from there. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
I understand.
these guys are signing scripts from home, bro. I'm like,
Yeah, And they even use, they bring the tablets for people to talk to their families, so using Zoom, so they can see their families.
Yeah.
Especially when people had COVID and the
Yeah.
areas were marked off, you couldn't enter the hospital at all. That's how people were able to communicate with their families, they did it via Zoom.
Yeah, and then there's so much, I mean, even with the health information now, or even starting your own brand, like you guys were talking about, just making a podcast just to talk. Like medicine is a discussion that people make, and that's
Oh,
a way
yeah,
to grow your own brand or your own channel.
absolutely, and it applies to, podcasting probably has every single genre, industry involved in it now.
Oh,
Yeah.
And there's no barrier to entry whatsoever.
Well, that's why we did this, you know? I mean, so the reason for this being called a podcast, or the reason that we approached it from that mindset, was we wanted to be a living, growing entity that has the ability to change what it is, you know, as it moves. And so podcasting is this thing where it can have audio components, it can have video components, it can have written components. The cast can change, that doesn't matter. The whole purpose of it can change, that doesn't seem to matter. It's all part of the same brand, and so like that's the kind of thing that we're looking to bring to with this. So really, really grateful for your time today. Take a chance before you leave to meet up with the presenters. And just from a standpoint, I'm going to put up on screen everybody's LinkedIn info, and so you
I do
can
have one on there.
So thanks to Enterprise Mobility for making this possible. And here's everybody's QR codes to their LinkedIn profiles if you want to link in with them.
I honestly created my LinkedIn thing just because we were hosting an exhibition of one of Billy Corgan's former bass players at our gallery, and I'm just like, I just want to be able to have an opportunity to bump into my favorite rock star. And so I added the LinkedIn thing because he was on there, and it's just like, that never happened, but we got in contact with him.
Even further ideas.
All the right reasons. That's good. But no, thank you very much, James. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you too.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see some of your art in a little
Okay,
bit.
some good stuff.
You have pretty portfolio.
Appreciate all of you that
LinkedIn.
hung in till the end. That was nice.
All right, it's not just on my shoes.
Great. I love it.
We'll be posting the video
That's
on
fantastic.
WXAV, so anybody that missed
How are
it,
you?
or if you're like, oh man, what did you say about it, I want to just watch that part again.
So I got to the
Or
point of my prize
Better
last
yet,
night.
link in with her and they're open to anybody talking to them, so.
I go through job search websites.
Good.
Little known job search